What's happening? Benson here. Where? A big rig. Can you believe it? I went live. I just realized I don't have the battery for this. Yeah. Got busy this morning and forgot all about charging my device. So let's rectify that real quick line. Might as well go live, see what they want to do in my podcast. Maybe they want to turn it into the so-called Truth Community chat room. Anyway, I hope everybody, well, I trust you are doing well, live listener. If anybody listens to this on the replay, some of these streams still manage to crawl their way up near 100 views. There was a time even 220 was possible. As the steady decline and slide into further social media irrelevance. Would that be the way to say it? I don't know. On the way to Charleston, South Carolina. Should be a interesting delivery. There's not much of a shoulder where I'm going. I'm not entirely sure I can drive in there with a big rig, so block slow lane and jump out, figure it out. It's hilarious. One, how do you order? How does the company order one item from, I guess, a manufacturer in this case, and then it arrives on a over-the-road 53-foot dry van? I don't understand what's happening, but whatever. I mean, that can't be profitable, can it? And fortunately, I mentioned something because my first stop in Charlotte, they accidentally get the one item. And then for some reason, before I left, I just mentioned to them that because normally it's a weekly route or a weekly load, multi-stop. So usually it's Charlotte, then east side of Atlanta. So I know that the black fella that works on the dock there, and maybe he's an install. I don't know what these people do, but I guess he's in head of shipping and handling, shipping and receiving. Who knows? But he knows the black fella at the Atlanta place. I knew they'd be chatting at some point. I said, "Oh, you might want to let your buddy know I won't be there till tomorrow." So they're sending me down to South Carolina, and then these guys wanted to know if that was, their company. I guess has multiple locations. I don't know. I don't really care, but I'll care enough to do a good job, of course. But why are we going slow all of a sudden? Slow motion, that's why. Slow motion. I think they're falling asleep up here. And then he called me, I guess, thought his parts would be there today. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, except the government won't let them drive that long. Plus, I couldn't make it by 5 anyway. Not possible. But yes, confused as to how this. I mean, in what world could that possibly be profitable to drive? So we're driving 4 hours, burning fuel. Whatever this load pays per mile to ship one piece to South Carolina. To Charleston, South Carolina. I'm no difference to me. Bizarre. What would it cost to FedEx overnight something like that? Maybe it's probably now that I think about it, parts for like doors, door frames, industrial, commercial doors. It's probably too big and unwieldy to FedEx overnight it or whatever. Again, it doesn't matter to me, but still puzzling. Such as when I order, some nutritional supplements and like one bottle of, herbal capsules ends up going from Seattle to, somewhere in Texas or whatever. You're like, this is not, how can this be profitable? Now it's not an entire plane, flying from Seattle with my, other things on the plane, but it's like, they can't be making a profit on a no more than $20 bottle. It's just not possible. Well, I finally forced myself to buy a new phone, and I finally said, "Fuck it, got a refurb." And the only reason I've not bought refurb phones in the past is it's possible to get one that the IMEI number or whatever is blacklisted on the network, because of whatever shenanigans the prior owner got up to. But I figured I'd just take my chances, and I don't know if it matters, but I'd like to keep my account balance under a certain amount. And I was going to accomplish that, except for some reason my company gave me an unexpected bonus, which I do appreciate, but thank you for the $500. That was nice. I guess since I worked the holidays, and maybe that's just the company policy. I have no idea. But, well, shit. Order me a phone, and now I don't know where the heck I'm going to be, so I had it sent to a counter at an Amazon at Whole Foods. So I'm pretty sure instead of the 3 days for Amazon Locker, I believe they keep it for 2 weeks. So I have to request some home time. Cruise on in there to the Whole Foods. So I got a refurbished Google Pixel 9 XL Pro or Pro XL. Man, what are these people doing? This is bizarre, man. I'm confused. I think they're fucking with me. It's bizarro world. Probably drunk. Ohio plates. Oh. Anyway. So hopefully that thing works. Let's see. $480, I guess. Yeah. Because I wasn't ever able to get. They had the Google Pixel 10 on sale during the Christmas season, and at a certain point they had it with $100 off, but I just never could. I was never in the right place at the right time to have it sent to an Amazon Locker. one thing about these Motorola's, as an older man, right, 50-year-old man, I've gotten used to the larger screen. So if you just get like a Google Pixel 9A, I have a 6A, my old 6A. I really like it, except it's a smaller screen. And I was looking at it last night. It's really too small. And words I can read them, but large print. Now there's some bozo going slow as fuck in a pickup truck with his flashers on. Go ahead and hit fast lane. See what happens. Wow, he's going. I don't think he's even going 45. Probably under the minimum. What up, Christos? I saw a little bit of you on the over at Modern Men Lost Again, and I'm still tripping out on. And again, I just said Christos's name, but he's not involved with this. So, just since maybe you're listening, I'm still tripping out on Dick Freedom Grower and all this. He does a lot of problem solving. I call it we level problem solving. And he was talking to Landry about AI and I guess the idea of NVIDIA as the world's most valuable company based on the stock price and all this. And here you go saying, well, maybe we shouldn't we consider putting the brakes on, all this technology and, NVIDIA. He just kind of went on a list of things having to do with AI. It's like, brother, have we not read our Kaczynski? Right? One of the highest IQs on record. If Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was a real person, that's just about all he wrote about, was that if humans don't destroy industrial society, that it's effectively, the whole idea of the manifesto, it's been a disaster for the human race. So, he extensively researched and wrote about, with his genius level mathematician brain, wrote about that humans can't just choose to put the brakes on technology. It's simply impossible. So he's like, oh, shouldn't we? Dick's like, shouldn't we consider slowing? You can't slow down, Dick. Society can't. You can't, push notify everybody through their smartphone and say, AI technology, full steam ahead, or drag your heels, right? And you click the fucking button, and then, now the emperor of the fucking realm is like, okay, slow it down with the, knock it off with the AI for a little while. Right? We'll poll you guys again next year. I mean, what fantasy world are some of these people living in? And again, I like Freedom Grower. It's not even. That has nothing to do with it. So at this point, when I talk about the idea of a syságent, and I've made the case that effectively everyone, functions as a agent of the system, whether they want to or not. And again, it's debatable. That's my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I could support it, factually, and I believe I could state my case convincingly, were I to devote the time to researching, and which is not going to happen most likely. But, it's at least debatable in my view. And it's like, and when I say agent, I'm still not saying Dick works for the CIA. Although it's possible. It's like, what does he get out of it? I don't know, is he so brainwashed in a certain way that his brain, his mind only functions in the context of him having power? Because there's no power in society for the people who comprise society. There's no mechanism for those people to say, okay, well, we've decided to slow down on the adoption of AI. Like, what are you talking about? So even if that was somehow possible, which it doesn't seem to be, then to who, what, if you want to talk about the idea of a government and a constitution, the idea of redress of grievances. Okay, who do we, again, what is that? We, but who would dictate we, right? At the level of at the we level problem solving, who does that we appeal to? And I would say that unless there's a clear path to answering that question directly, what's the point? Is it just this is this is a pastime and this is what the being does? The being goes on live streams and continues to talk a bunch of foolishness from 5 years ago, and it's foolishness. And again, if somebody was so inclined, I'm certain, heck, there's probably me saying a lot of foolishness on my own channel somewhere. I'm almost certain of it in years past. I would like to think that the opportunity has perhaps been taken advantage of, to in some way, creditably push that or credibly push forward, thinking within a progression, to where, yeah, okay, maybe I said these things 3 years ago, how foolish, but it didn't seem foolish at the time. And that's part of the reason for the progression in thinking, because if I was not putting in the work and effort to progress my own thinking, I probably never would have exposed my own foolishness. And I don't know that other folks are interested in putting in the work to expose Benson's foolishness. And that's where the mockery and ridicule comes in order to inject fear, guilt, and shame, of course. And that's one of the primary mechanisms of control, wielded against the populace: the fear, the guilt, and the shame. Certainly. And then the idea of, humanity as loving, tolerant, and accepting. Well, okay, where's the evidence of that? Number one. Number two, if humans are in some way responsible for this world and these systems of things, where's the evidence? Where are the performances of this love, tolerance, and acceptance? Oh, I see. What's really meant is if I go along with the program, status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups, then I won't be mocked and ridiculed quite as severely. So to, fall away or rebel or sort of divorce oneself from, going along with the program, whatever the program may be in a particular context. Okay, well, now the other beings are happy to mock and ridicule in order to have the being experience fear, guilt, and shame. And then that doesn't feel good. So, okay, well, knock it off, get back in line. And then so the removal of those feelings of fear, guilt, and shame, that, I guess, whatever's left in the breach feels like love, tolerance, and acceptance. And I'm here to say that no, it's not. Because love doesn't know how to do that. Love doesn't know how to perform that. Acceptance doesn't know how to reject. Right. So this world is not a world of acceptance. It's a world based on an expert level understanding of the withholding of acceptance, the lack of acceptance, aka rejection, which is a big component of, say it with me, folks, the Christ story. It's a big component there, rejection. And so this world of death and game of lies that makes an enemy of what I am, it has to reject me. It has to treat me as if I am guilty, or what may possibly be symbolically represented by my true essence, if it is indeed one with the most super intelligent power, force, and source of love and creation at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, a quickening spirit. Well, this world of death, game of lies, this ignominious place, it must treat Benton, if Benton in some way symbolizes that, it has to treat him very nearly at all times as if Benton is somehow guilty of something, which this is a notion that I reject outright. Convict me then. And I would, it's not, I'm not challenging the government, but they're free to convict me of whatever they choose to convict me of anytime they want to. And, just about anybody will happily say, well, yeah, the feds have like a 95% conviction rate. It's like, well, what else do I need to know? The idea that the feds could indict a ham sandwich, So the reality is, regardless of my behavior and my activities, anytime the government wants to, it'll scoop me up, convict me of whatever it chooses to convict me of. Most likely, I mean, there's a reason why it's not a 100% conviction rate, I suppose. I don't know, maybe I'll wake up one day and the government will just have taken whatever they feel like I owe them in taxes. Maybe they'll just take it out of my account. Maybe I would prefer that, because the idea that I'm willingly going to fund what the government does, not anymore, not willingly. Absolutely not. That's a violation. What do we see now? ICE out of Minneapolis. Okay, well, make sure to go to work and pay for ICE. ICE out of LA. Okay, well, it's Sunday and, they're having a rally/riot downtown, and then everybody's going back to work Monday morning to generate tax revenue for the feds to pay for ICE. So what's the motherfucking difference? Do you think the government cares? People march around with signs and maybe set some shit on fire here and there. Who cares? I think the government probably only cares that those folks continue to go punch clock somewhere and pay their taxes to do whatever the government does. And which also sort of disproves the whole idea of MAGA conservatives in the first place. How can y'all be taxpayers? And I know I'm not necessarily talking to a bunch of MAGA conservatives, and clearly conservatism is not a thing, and certainly Donald Trump could not be classified as a conservative. I mean, that's simply impossible. But no such possibility there. However, how can people complain and talk about Biden's poopy diaper and that's liberal and the Democrats this and the Democrats that? Yeah, you're paying for it. You are paying for it. Or more correctly, they are paying for it. So do you think the government, the liberal so-called government, and you can't call it a conservative government, I don't care who the president is. So the so-called liberal federal government, do you think it gives a flying fuck what is pointed at and laughed at? Ha ha. Biden's poopy diaper. Ha ha. It's like, do you think the government cares? As long as the tax money keeps rolling. Make no mistake, folks, there is no bigger fool or chump or sucker anywhere ever. The greatest sucker of all time is the American taxpayer. Just the 2008, 2009 bailouts alone. And how that's not the only videos hitting my YouTube feed at this time. I think that proves, where the American people are. Like, and now I'm starting to see everybody starting to blame economic and job market factors on the pandemic and the idea that, the people have changed and society's changed. And I'm like, hey, I hate to break it to you. This was a fucking shit show before the pandemic. It was a shit show in the 80s and the 90s. This idea that America was some fucking Shangri-La paradise. And no, it wasn't. That's propaganda. It wasn't. Those are fucking lies, man. Was it in some ways less bad than 2026? I'm sure. None of us, having adapted to, having merged with the technology of the smartphone, you could not transport any of us back to 1987. We couldn't live in 1987. We wouldn't last a week, y'all, if we had the option to return to 2026. So yeah, do it in a thought experiment. Hey, here's a machine, and you push a button, and the machine will send you to 1987. Right? You'll just live the rest of your life in a suspended animation or whatever. Pick a year, 1996. I don't know. Clinton years. I don't know. Go live in fucking 1980. Last year of Reagan. Whatever. And 88. You wouldn't last a week because you have forgotten what it was like. And now it's just like, oh, it's whimsical to think about, well, we left the house and there wasn't any way nobody could contact us and this and that. And yeah, now everybody goes into a panic if they don't know where their phone is at all times. Right. And then if you try to tell somebody that they can't have their phone for a few hours, it's like, well, what if there's an emergency? Well, somebody will call 911 if there's an emergency. How are you going to be, the fact that you're reachable at the drop of a hat, how's that going to save anybody? It's not going to save anybody's life. You and I, it's not you, the listener, they, whoever, I'm not even addressing the listener, whoever that hypothetical person, they can't live. They wouldn't make 24 hours without a smartphone. And I know there's people that come to the channel that'll say, well, I'm different and I'm this. That's fine. I'm talking in generalities here, right? Some of us could go back to 1985 or whatever. Yeah, I get it. It's so few and far between, it may as well not exist. But I don't know how many more times I can watch, the music video for Aha, Take on Me, right? Like, what am I going to do in 1985 or 1988 or whatever? You'd have to watch whatever. Well, I had a lot of problems when I was 15. You probably did too, listener. I mean, you really want to go back to that? I don't want to go back and relive that. Yeah, I had a lot of fun back in the day. I mean, come on. That's a bell that cannot be unrung. What is the point? See, this is the thing. Is there? I'll answer your question with a question, Dick. What justification is there for the discussion of provably erroneous and incorrect thought forms? So, answer my question, and I'll be happy to answer your question. But thank you for not providing thank you for not providing an assertion or an argument or a defense to your, well, in fact, I don't know that you've ever actually argued a point. I think what you asked rhetorically of somebody else was, shouldn't we consider putting the brakes on AI? So first I would need you to answer, I would need you to go read Kaczynski and then come up with some sort of way to argue against Kaczynski's assertions that can't be done in the first place. But then to answer your question with a question, what would be the purpose of having a discussion based on false premise and faulty logic and provably incorrect forms of logic and reason? Like, what's the point of talking about those issues in the first place? So you see, and in fact, you seem to be replacing, and where's the context? Because I could just tomorrow start talking about nothing but the TV show Mad Men. I could devote the channel to, I'm just going to talk about, the things that went on in the television show Mad Men, and we can talk about that, see? And we can treat that very seriously, and we can pretend like a fictional TV series somehow has substance and meaning, right? Externally. And so what I would say is, it seems to be implied, Dick, that these are serious matters. The notion of AI technology and how it's going to impact the youth and future generations, that seems like a serious thing. But I would assert that by discussing it in such a manner and subjecting it to the something that can never possibly bear fruit, referred to as level problem solving, you're actually treating it as if it's not at all serious. And in some way, I would consider that to be an insult to the youth and to future generations. To say, well, yeah, my name's Dick, Freedom Grower, I'm here. And instead of maybe, if Dick actually believes it's possible to affect change on this world or this society, instead of actually doing something that I knew could or would bear fruit, I chose to spend a bunch of time, energy, effort, and resources having provably nonsensical discussions. And I mean nonsensical in the vein of nothing can possibly come out of that discussion that will ever benefit society. It's not possible. It's impossible. So what is the point of that, sir? I don't know. Until you can answer all of that, I don't see any path forward in a discussion based on your query. I'm gonna need you to put in a lot of time, effort, and deep thinking and construction of argument to match the level of what I've managed to put forward in the last 10 minutes. And so what I see you exhibiting, Dick, is the exact same level of horseshit that you were exhibiting 4 years ago. And we can go back to whatever horseshit I was exhibiting 4 years ago. And whatever I'm on about today may, in fact, in the final analysis, amount to horseshit. But it's at least an evolved, progressed by 4 or more years version of horseshit. And wouldn't that have to be superior in some way? And I already have predicted what question I might be asked next. And yes, it's already been answered. If that is, in fact, if my brain is accurately predicting in this moment what follow-up question would be asked. And perhaps it is. And what I find so interesting is in my entire history of counteracting people's rhetorical queries with rhetorical queries of my own, I've yet to have anybody take up the challenge and say, you know what, Benton's right. This is bullshit. I better go ahead and actually put the work in and the effort in to think, well, that's not true. One person, after I challenged them, actually pulled their fucking head out of their ass and did better. You know who that was? Kim before the storm. He pulled his head out of his ass. Said, you know what? Benton's right. Because I finally just said to him, hey man, I'm not the final boss of this shit. If you can't deal with my nonsense, I mean, that's going to be a problem for you. And he pulled his head out of his ass. He fixed the flaws in his thinking. And he's doing much better today when it comes to being able to approach various problems with respect to critical thinking. And you, Dick, are in the exact same place you were 4 years ago. And that's not a problem for me. That's a problem perhaps for you. Maybe. Right? I mean, only you can determine that. Meanwhile, I don't suffer. I don't suffer for that. And I can blow smoke up my own ass and say, well, look how great Benton is. Look, I'm running circles around Dick, pseudo intellectually without really fucking breaking a sweat. I mean, who cares? That doesn't even reflect on me. That actually reflects on you, Dick. And I understand you may not care. I recognize that you may not care. Again, not my problem. But I guess what I find confusing is what is Dick's attraction to a so-called truth community and to certain types of discussion. That's what I find interesting, anthropologically, sociologically, and I find that piece interesting. And I know if I think about it long enough, I'll probably figure it out through deductive reason. And I also understand a pattern has emerged where whatever output, whatever I send up the fucking flagpole will almost always be answered with more rhetorical questions. And it's like, okay, well, I can, I have a brain that can play that game, and then I'll come up with my own rhetorical question, and we'll just go back and forth positing rhetorical questions to each other that neither one of us will ever bother to answer. Isn't that interesting? I mean, it's mundane, is what it is. It's unfortunate in my view because it doesn't have to be that way. It has to be. And for me, it's a competitive endeavor. I convert all this stuff into a competition. It's not a me beating you. It's in the Kim before the storm analogy, it's basically like, oh, Benton is, in a metaphorical one-on-one contest, he keeps beating me with this one type of maneuver. And so Kim is smart enough to figure out, oh, well, okay, how do I counteract this maneuver? And then in discovering that maneuvers can be counteracted, perhaps one discovers a technology. It's like, oh, actually, all of this stuff can be counteracted. It all has counter moves, right? So it's like, oh, well, the person who refuses, for the most part, to make their own assertions and then lays back in the cut and counterpunches, well, there's a clear and easy counter to that is I stop making assertions, and then in response to your rhetorical question, I invent my own seemingly opposing rhetorical question and say, hey, could you answer that? Well, of course you're not going to answer that. Why would you? Why would you answer that? Now, you may respond with another question, and I would say, well, that's not really an answer. But it's as much of an answer as I gave, which is to ask the question. Even that, I found it necessary to do like 20 minutes to properly frame the question. What I see is a bunch of bozos who day in and day out, and it ends up being years. I see a bunch of bozos who they table the rhetorical questions, but never even bother to properly apply a context. It's like, I ain't even left to fill in the context for you. What is this? So it should be embarrassing, honestly. it should be embarrassing. And now I would also say spiritually, it certainly represents some form of energy vampire if the being is foolish enough to fall into that, right? Which, thankfully, Benton is now largely immune from such trainings, right? And then who, whom or what is being powered as a result might be interesting. Where if energy vampire, spiritual vampirism is a thing, like, okay, where is this energy going and for what purpose? Like, what's it going to? That would be interesting. So maybe those would be the type of discussions to have, Dick, instead of just this whole thing of, if I criticize a particular type or genre or just discussion at all, it's like, well, okay, then what is the point of having a discussion? Well, number one, you're tactically, what you're doing is you're exaggerating for effect. You're making it appear ridiculous that somebody would even question the notion of discussion in the first place. And that only works, again, by what? Removal of context. In order for that to even be tabled, the context must be removed. So again, my own framework of a Russian nesting doll series of context, in order for what you're putting forward to even have any validity whatsoever, it must be taken out of context, which to me, that proves bad faith and disingenuousness. It's at least a performance of I don't know the word for that, but it is something that is disingenuous, right? And could be considered bad faith, regardless of the intention, the actual intention, right? Irrespective of the intention. If that's the effect, I would say that's good enough. But and see, what's interesting for the individual is, as long as I observe, my own internal space, now I do begin to feel the drain. See, I begin to feel the psychic drain. However, I also recognize in this moment that the beings who lay back and counterpunch and pose these questions, they largely, they don't experience that, I would guess, right? That they are. So is it because that's the draining is only going to be in one direction from their perspective? It's like, yeah, they will potentially drain off and suck off of the energy of a being such as myself, but then while not putting forth enough of themselves psychically to possibly be drawn off of or drawn from as source, right? So then we get back to the idea of supreme authoritative righteous source. So, and Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity, is freedom grower Dick is, right? And I'll ask my own rhetorical question. Is it possible that he is beyond the redemption of whatever, that would be symbolically representative of? Or, is it buried so deep within that it can't, realistically be uncovered or recovered, right? If in fact all beings are born into spiritual righteousness and, perfected beings, and the idea of the innocent child, which I think has to be true. I think it has to be, because otherwise that would not be a worthy sacrifice to Moloch if it wasn't innocent and pure, right? And so then we get into the spiritual warfare and the demonic aspects, and to say, at what point does the being become so cut off that it's now beyond redemption, and it knows it's beyond redemption? Well, I might, bitch, but I don't know that what you have to say about it will have anything to do with it. Meanwhile, guess what I was already doing, lady? It's already increasing following this. And then I would also say, Dick, in your question, you put air quotes around we, but see, and this is the problem of the pronouns, that's a different we than the we level problem solving. Because so now when you say we in the context of a discussion, when you say, what's the point of talking if air quotes we, well, that's a we in the context of the so-called truth community, I would assume, or whoever might join a panel and whoever might listen to a panel. So in the context of that discussion, of we level problem solving, without the speaker, in this case, Dick or Freedom Grower, if he doesn't specify, it's quite easy for the listener to assume that he means the American people, because surely he doesn't mean that the so-called truth community should consider putting the brakes on AI, but maybe that's what he means. Maybe he means the so-called truth community should boycott all of these technologies, and maybe he means the so-called truth community should not invest in NVIDIA. Well, I'm already not doing any of those things, Dick, and I'm assuming that you're already not doing those things. So, I mean, I don't. What more is there to do with that? It's done and done, as far as I can tell. So it seems to me like old Dick's having his cake and eating it too, having it both ways, because he's not specifying that he's now switched to a different group of people. He's potentially referring to two wholly separate groups or wholly different groups, although there may be some overlap in those groups. He's referring to them based on, the same content. So I've been harping on for probably a couple of years now is, I want to be as specific with the pronouns as I possibly can from time to time. It's like, oh, now I'm doing it. Now I'm saying we, and it's not entirely clear who I mean by that. I understand that, laziness there and seemingly all of we all of the individuals that comprise society, right, seem to suffer from that, seemingly. Or are afflicted with that. And so one of my few points of possible contention would be, any individual at any time could choose to transform, internally bootstrap and grow, adapt, and change, and to move beyond what I would view to be a limitation. Because I'm certain that at some point in the past, I was also trapped. I know I was. I was also trapped within a prison of my own design. I would refer to it as E-level. Because we're still going to need we for the purposes of the discussion, Dick, the so-called truth community, or just maybe Dick and I, if such a thing could, possibly exist for a moment. Well, can you or I, within context, time, space, a source of power? See, I can a source of power. And so in order to identify that source of power, I need to be able to prove that I am connected with that source of power. And what is that source of power? Well, that's the supreme righteous authoritative source, of course. It's the what I am is the way, what I am is the truth, what I am is the life. No one comes unto true knowledge of self except through Christ consciousness. It's that phenomenon. See, that's the source of power. And I would assert that's the only source of power and energy. And all other sources, that's it all goes back to that. And if Dick, in fact, is fallen beyond the possibility of redemption, that's what he's cut off from. He doesn't have access to that. Well, Benton, if Benton is still redeemable, and again, I know exactly the score there. I'm using this in the context of a thought experiment. If Benton is possibly still could be redeemed in a religious or a so-called Christian, and I don't need, again, we don't need to even go into the dogma or the doctrine. This is a thought experiment. This is a thought experiment. It's a perfect way to phrase that. So in that context, and I failed to make my point, but anybody with half a brain, their brain will fill in the gaps there. Sometimes my brain has already filled it in, and then I can't remember that I didn't say that yet. And by the time it's time to say it, it's like, oh, well, what was it? It's like, well, we're your brain, sir. We've already moved on to something else, so I don't know what to tell you. You're on your own. Okay, fair enough. So, and then to actually answer Dick's question, which I don't have to do, well, Dick, if this is the level of discourse that's available to me within myself, how could you ever be useful to me in the context of a discussion, what you may refer to as people talking? So, in fact, I think Dick has inadvertently proven that there's no point in me talking to Dick whatsoever. It's actually pointless. From my perspective, well, there is no point. So you're right. Why would I do that? Other than my own amusement of myself and passing the time. And again, this YouTube channel as entertainment, classified as entertainment for entertainment purposes only, and cannot possibly represent meaning. That's not possible. And I'm not being sarcastic, even though I sound sarcastic. I mean that. So yeah, mission accomplished, problem solved. Yeah, good stuff. Like that. That wasn't too draining. I feel a little bit. Took a little bit out of me. But yeah, so, and the answer is the source of power it's always one source of power. Just like is an indivisible force, and thus, by extension, this realm cannot ever be anything but illusory. This realm can't be real because it lacks power and meaning. In fact, it's dependent upon the indivisible force of what I am to power it. And it's not possible for that source to be individuated. That source can't divide itself, because if it could divide itself, it could divide itself against itself, which would introduce the possibility of defeat, which is not possible. And that's, in fact, one of the major reasons for the existence of delusion in the first place. waking dreams, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again, is to make it seem like these divisions could possibly occur. And then by imagination and the subversion of the creative force of what I am, that so-called human beings within the context of a process of dying. And so this thing called life is in fact a process of death and dying, it turns out. Funny how that works. You know, so in some ways, this is the imaginings, right? Again, waking dreams, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again. It's the dreaming and the imaginings of supreme authoritative righteous source, you know, that it was even possible to inhabit death, the flesh, world of death, game of lies, that it would even be possible for this to be occurring. And I'm here to tell you it's not possible. Because if that was possible, then you could have a force that would be the source of all so-called life and authority and power and justice, and that it would be possible to divide that against itself, which would represent defeat. And if that was possible, then the original premise of an assertion would be invalidated and voided and nullified. And then antithesis would carry the day. Well, that can't happen. That would be the literal victory. That would be Satan somehow defeating so-called air quotes God. And so now I've hit upon the truth of the matter, which is we got a bunch of Satanists running around, whether they know they're Satanists or not. Some of them know they're Satanists. Some of them are performing Satanism and don't even know they're performing Satanism. Some of them think they're Christians and are performing Satanism. You know, Luciferianism. So, and again, I don't have a dog in that hunt. Again, this is, you know, under the pretense and imaginings that it's even possible for there to be an individuated bitten. Well, individuated bitten ain't about Satanism. So, bitten can't possibly suffer as a result. What I am is the real thing. That's my birthright in the context of this world of death and game of lies. That's the sacrifice that Moloch considers worthy. See? It's that thing. It's the symbolic representation of that thing that antithesis must disprove in order to claim victory over a force and phenomenon that is otherwise, it's taken for granted, the air quote so-called God, the idea that imbued within whatever that is all of these characteristics of creation, intelligence, love, beauty, tolerance, acceptance. Right? And then antithesis or counterpoint is that could somehow ever see itself undone. And meanwhile, if it ever be undone, it can only ever undo itself. So it's like, hey, let's have it and see if force is able to help. Right? I mean, that's how deep this crazy world goes. When I talk about supreme intelligence, you know, that's in some ways is the ability to consider all of these things without going insane. Now, maybe some of you can perform that without taking it to the streets for the better part of 10 years. I mean, that's the only way I was ever going to be able to contend with all of this, at least in the early stages. I took it to the streets. which allowed me to productively apply my own thoughts and my thought processes to all of these conundrums and paradoxes and enigmas. Turns out what I am always rises above all of that. Isn't that interesting? That's all it knows how to do, is rise above. Doesn't know how to do anything else. And antithesis says, are you sure you don't want to get low? You sure you don't want to get down? A little jungle boogie, perhaps? Well, yeah, maybe in the youth for a while, but that's going to get old by at least by, maybe the mid-30s at the latest, right? What then? Fuck, I'd probably be dead of PED. I'd be dead of steroid abuse by now, probably, if I'd stayed in that cycle, whatever I was on about by my mid-30s. I was one of the rare people who was able to put on significant amounts of lean mass without, except for one bottle of methyl 1 testosterone, methylated testosterone, one bottle of pro hormones, M1T. Other than that, I did it all on my own, buddy. Well, that wouldn't have been enough by age 50. Some of those guys just go on the gear and stay on it till it kills them, or they go insane, or both. Good thing I got out of that. That would be no way to live. Now, would it? All I discovered was that I got up to what I thought was my goal weight, realized, well, all that did was now I have a new goal weight. And it's like, okay, well, clearly this is never going to end. Yeah, I've got the frame to hold about 220, and it's like, I'm just going to want to be 240 when I get to 220. So what's the point? Might as well stop now at $1.90, $1.95. Why do I got to be 220? When I know all I'm going to do is get this. Okay, what's next? 245. We've all seen the guy that you get his attention and he can't turn his neck, so he's like turns his whole upper body to face you. It's like, yeah, who wants to be that guy? Right? That's crazy. I mean, what else is there to do? I'd probably have to become a social media influencer. Good God. You want to talk about a fate worth, the so-called death. That is death. Social media influence. Good God. No thanks. And why are so many of the truthers retired? I'm still trying to figure that out too. It's like, listen, I don't begrudge anybody who's got it like that, just kind of does whatever they do, isn't up to much anything. I'm pretty sure they've come up with something to be working on, or some sort of goal or challenge, something to look at. Like, I'm seeing a lot of folks just more or less seem like they're retired, which is, I guess that's okay. I don't know. Just don't think that would work. I don't think that would work for me to, and I won't even say give up. It's just, I absolutely, given a proper, sure, I just don't think, and I do at times actually, but in the long run, I think I would end up choosing to do something different and find a challenge, right? I think I would have to. I don't think I would really have a choice. Yeah, I started talking about myself. Everybody left. That's all right. Well, half of them left. That's okay. 64 degrees. Starting to sweat here, man. This ain't right. Turn the AC on. Well, I guess I'd keep talking, except I think I pretty much said it all. Maybe I could. Maybe we'll put the non-tent banner up and just ramble. But, sir, I thought you were already. Well, okay. I'll ramble some more. Or will I? I'm just thinking about what do I need to do to actually be able to pick this new phone up once it gets delivered to the Whole Foods. And other than my actual job here, not much for me to do except figure out when is the next trip to Walmart that I can go in there and spend generally between $80 and $180 typically on whatever, while looking at the faces of the freaked out proletariat, trying to figure out how they're going to manage to pay for food going forward. And it's like, well, I don't know, man. I live in a truck. It does sort of show the every man for himself aspects of this realm. It's like, well, sorry about your luck, but my total just came to $185, and I don't even have to think about how that impacts my. Not now. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of times when it wasn't that long ago. I was picking up cans and bottles, sleeping in a car. Averaging $15 a day, picking up cans and bottles, the streets of Los Angeles. So But this idea of the power of now, and again, time, space, location, place, and the delusory and illusory realm itself, you know, is somehow imposing this idea of the present moment. Now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone. Well, the people who like to say, well, that's really all there is the now. Well, in the now, I don't have to fucking even think about it. What stuff costs. $150 pair of waterproof boots just for, the few times I'm going to be in the snow. And then depending on how I choose to structure my so-called life, it's like at some point I may just have to leave them somewhere, and whoever finds them finds them. It's like, well, here's some boots. Probably won't be carrying them around with me. Not really interested in buying yet another car, because as convenient as the car is, I found it's mostly good at allowing me to continue to have a bunch of possessions. And as the royal we knows from Fight Club, the things that I own end up owning me. I mean, if I let them, right? If I let them. But I guess if I carry around enough currency to plausibly purchase all of those items, then I'm free to walk away from them at any given time. And then ultimately it would be to walk away without having the money and without knowing or caring or having any concern or regard for, will the resources be available in the future? And that's some version of the biblical notion, I suspect, of, take no care for what you're going to wear or eat or put on, or, however that's phrased in the Bible. Boy, did I fuck up and miss my chance to take a PP? Because I forgot about how insanely long these construction zones are out here in South Carolina. I mean, they go 50 miles at a time. It's been so long. I've been in South Carolina, but I haven't been on some of these roads recently. It's just one of the few places I've seen where they'll just do a continuous construction zone for 50 fucking miles. It's crazy. Gonna have to exit to the truck stop. I hate trying to get back into traffic. At least it's not one lane, but even then it still makes it hard to merge. But I guess we can figure it out. Something's going on with my eyeballs. Probably whatever was in that pizza, my body's still fighting all of that off, and it's changing my fucking biome. My biome's reconfiguring, probably. My eyes are kind of weeping. Actually, I think it might be. I'm back on the horsetail extract for. Let's see if maybe I can get my fingernails, these lines to go out of my fingernails. The luster came back to them. They're no longer quite as dull and brittle as they were. But my hair looked halfway decent last time I grew it out, as far as being healthy. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the horsetail. I was having dry eyes for a while earlier in the malabsorption and the chronic illness. And, I'd like to know, why aren't there more testimonies of healing and restoration? Where are the testimonies? Because I have been healed and restored mind, body, and spirit, and I continue to be healed and restored mind, body, and spirit, uncovering and walking the righteous, perfected path that lies within, tapped into the only power source, direct access to the only power source, by, for, and with the power and meaning in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus. And they say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, it's many things. But part of it is the idea of what I am is the way, what I am is the truth, what I am is the life. And then within the context of world of death, game, and lies, nobody, after being sacrificed to Moloch's machine of industrial and post-industrial society, nobody comes unto true knowledge of self except through Christ consciousness. That's the meaning and the power in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus, which is, at a minimum, perhaps some representation in the so-called flesh, again, the dead flesh. Here's a gigantic sign, 2 billboards: forgive my sins, Jesus, save my soul, repent, it says. Already, baby. Already. Do you know what it means to repent or to be repentant? And do they even know? Whoever commissioned that billboard, do they know what do they know about repentance, if anything? Or are they checking the boxes dogmatically, doctrinum? I don't know what the word would be there. At the level of doctrine, right? Oh, yeah. So we got an hour and a half left. Seems to have some kidney stimulation going on right about now. That good pain. And that's been, I know how much y'all love me talking about my bodily fluid. That's been quite the journey. The color of the urine, right? Uh, very. I found it to be an accurate way of judging where the kidneys may be at. If, and there, again, no panacea, right? A lot of the marketing is revolves around panacea, a cure-all, right? And well, that's pretty soon you're going to be into snake oil territory, but or one will anyway. Yeah, the combination, a lot of these things, cilantro, onion, perhaps even garlic, which is this store-bought. I'm told it's all fucked off because it's from China, but either way, I guess better than nothing. I don't know. Whatever it is. What else is in there? Ginger powder. That's probably okay for the kidney. I don't know. The horsetail probably is some form of a diuretic, I would assume. Most of that herbal stuff is diuretic. Saying that right? And here's the thing: is what if a person is provably medically not diabetic, but man, the amount of urine that I produce in the 24-hour period is it's something, man. It's That's almost a full-time job staying on top of that. Goodness gracious. Part of me, the truck providing, for the most part, proper rest, although not always because of the nature of the job. But uh, part of me, even though I quit twice already and they wouldn't let me quit, it's like, yeah, that's part of the reason I let them talk me out of quitting is, well, I might as well just keep eating nutritious food and putting all these, you know, mostly herbal supplements. Of course, you got your mushrooms, lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, and reishi. I'm saying that right. Ginseng, and now we're on not. I said American ginseng. It's actually Siberian. So now I'm on the Siberian as well as the Korean. What else did I hop on? The testosterone supporting herbs, the horny goatweed complex. It's got the tribulus or tribulus terretrus or however the hell. I don't know how to pronounce half this stuff. I have a better chance of spelling it than I do. However, that's said. I think it's got maca powder in it, which is, I don't know if that does anything or not. The Tomcat Ali, the Long Jack, but, which is funny because a lot of that gets associated with like so-called male enhancement or, libido. But one thing I found is since I almost never eat raw meat, and it's not for any ideological reasons, but that's been the main thing that's caused my libido to go down. I got to say, I don't miss it. It's in fact, when that does when it does show itself, it's more of an annoyance than anything else at this point. It's like, oh, really? Just to remind me of, you know, the more disgusting aspects of being surrounded by the enemy of death, aka the dead flesh, right? Supreme authoritative righteous source, surrounded and seemingly encased in dead flesh. Man, I gotta find somewhere to stop. This is getting bad. And I don't even feel like I need to go, but what'll happen is at some point, the equipment will start saying, you make us wait much longer, we're not going to operate correctly. What is that walking down the road? Oh, he's got a weighted vest on. I think he's got weights on his legs. It made him look like a little person. You know how a little person's built? Strangely proportioned. But he's actually a regular dude. It's all puffed up, all swole up with got weights on his body. All right. I see a wide spot. I'm going for it. We're stopping. We'll deal with it. Looks like it's going to be kind of a bitch to back in traffic from here, but something's got to give. So now I got to try to cross this on ramp. That's going to be fun. Oh, goodness. But yeah, yeah, truck driving's been going fairly well, I would have to say. Maybe that's to balance out how horrific and nightmarish it had gotten there for a while. I start to wonder if some of these trucking companies, it's like, the new drivers kind of start out with getting sort of thrown to the wolves of the lower level dispatchers. And then if I can prove myself, reliable in some way, maybe it's like, since, these dispatchers work on commission for the most part, maybe I have to be around long enough to, because I'm assuming there's a limited amount of drivers they can work with. So, you know, they're going to be like, hey, if you want me to work with this one dude, how do I know he's not going to fuck up my commission? Right. I mean, I'm assuming that would be a factor somewhere. Well, all this dude does is live in the truck and work and choose out the fucking owner every once in a while. And I don't even mean that. Just, tolerates a bunch of foolishness and then eventually tries to quit. But beyond that, strange is a strange person. It's got to be strange to work with somebody and then just watch them spend fucking all the holidays at a truck stop, right? All right, we made it. We made it. Good deal. That was questionable, honestly, but we made it happen. About an hour and 22 minutes. Goodness. Still, how can this be real, man? 4 hours to deliver one part. Like, this is crazy. It really is. I don't know. There's a lot I could say about that. I won't. Yeah, I guess I'm looking forward to this new phone in some way. I think mainly because I've put myself through, I've ran the gauntlet in my own mind of, what to buy. I've sort of gone back and forth and hemmed and hawed. I don't know that I still, to even spend with case and tax $515. It's just insane, right? That my last my Google Pixel 6a was 300, and that was shockingly, it's like that's way more than I'd ever spent on a phone. I don't think I'd ever spent more than 200 up until that point. And part of this is I always get unlocked, for the most part. I almost always get unlocked phones, almost always. And that's, you're paying cash for, there's no carrier discount, if that makes sense. Factory unlocked. And then actually I paid $229 for my phone now, but just something told me that they were going to put it on sale, and like right after I bought it, it went down to like $179, and then I think I think it's like it's at or below 150, and I think it got down to like 129 during Christmas. I was like, oh well, it's just, I had to have it at the time. So it was like, fuck it, this is what I'm getting. I had the money for a $500 phone. I couldn't bring myself to do it at the time, but here we are. But my backup phone is I just forgot to have it unlocked. It was I bought it for Walmart Family Mobile back in the day. It's actually it's still on Android 11 or whatever, but it's a really good phone. This old Motorola, but finally cracked the screen and it's still usable. But I'm using it, for my GPS for my trucking. But once I get this new phone, I might actually make myself. Oh, now of course here's the rest area. Yeah, I guess I could have looked ahead to see where the rest area was. How silly of me. Yeah, I might. And man, it's a bummer. U.S. Mobile kept having like really good sales on their year of service, and I just never could. I never could line it up enough to take advantage. But it's really, really. And if I wanted to get real crazy with it and try to, find some service where I could get a new number and port out, and do all this, you can kind of finagle that system where they're like, yeah, we got a really special deal, but you got to port in from another carrier or whatever. There's kind of ways around that, apparently, but I don't know, man. That doesn't even say. It's like, yeah, what am I saving? $100? It's like, fuck it, I'll just pay the $100 at this point. It's easier to make the $100 than to try to figure out, some version of scamming the system. And I mostly like the Pixels because it gets OS updates till like 2033 or something. So I'll get the new Android. I like my Motorola, but it's already, there's already a newer Android that it's never going to get. So I think it's an Android 15, and it's not going to be able to go higher. And I'm not going to fuck around with. Oh, did I get paid? No, I spent $10 at Amazon. Well, I need y'all to take that 500 off so I can trying to not go over a certain threshold in my account. I need them to go ahead and hit me for that 500, 490 something, whatever it's going to be. The $10 was the case, I guess. But all of these are good problems, so-called problems to have, I suppose, as they say, whoever they are. Wish I had some way to react to content. I tried at a certain point to rig up some audio gear so I could actually listen to YouTube and have it go through the live stream while I'm driving. And it was possible, but it ended up not without. I'd like to try to figure out how to do it without an actual computer being involved. And it just never could quite make it happen. That would spice things up. All right, I guess I am out of here. Thanks for watching, I guess. Bye.